Welcome again to NEWSPASTY, and I'm Johnny Vedmore, and this is Tories Lick Dick Relentlessly News UK. And who are they on about today? Oh, what? Keir Starmer. This is called Gaza Starmer's first major U-turn. Welcome to NEWSPASTY.
Back on the 7th of October, Hamas launched an attack on Israel that
Look
saw
at
more
that.
than 1,400 Israeli deaths, alongside around 200 hostages being taken by the terror group. In the days and weeks that followed, Israel hit back, launching barrages of missiles into Gaza.
Right. Well, I gotta say, TLDR news so far is like almost like they're talking to people who have never seen the news before and haven't watched any news from every other channel. It's kind of like a mollycoddling idiots. It sounds like it's like, did you know that all of this stuff happened when this stuff happened and this stuff happened that led us to this Gaza Starmer U-turn? You'd think everybody in the audience is well aware by now what happened on October 7th. Everybody's there. Everybody knows now. Tories Lick Dick Relentlessly News is going to tell you anyway.
It's been reported that they're now preparing a full-scale ground invasion. The Israeli government has also cut water, fuel and gas supplies into Gaza, an act that the UN has described as collective punishment and a violation of international law.
Well, isn't it true? But the UN, what are the UN going to do about it? And the answer, as you heard in my Freudian slip of the tongue there, is that absolutely nothing. Zero. They're not. The UN aren't here to save the day, are they? They're the bad guys. If you think they're here to save the day, then you're very much wrong. You're very much wrong. The history of the UN is not a good one. Collective punishment and violation of international law. Now, this is a good example how an evil organization can still be like a stopped clock, right, twice. Usually twice a day, but usually for a reason. So this puts them with legitimacy. Saying this is collective punishment and this is violation of international law when everybody agrees with that means that it gives them legitimacy to be the one to solve the problem. Then you put it through the mechanism of the United Nations and it does not solve the problem. And what happens then? Well, you've wasted all of the time, and by that time Israel's run and we're on to a new thing. So it allows, this is just a little game. They're throwing you in one direction where you think, yeah, we need to get someone to sort this out. This is collective punishment. Who is going to do it? Well, the people who are telling us what's going on. Yeah, United Nations, you do it. Oh, United Nations swallows it up. It takes forever. Nothing comes out of it. They have no teeth. And at the end of it, Gaza's gone and that's it. See how it works.
Law. It was Labour leader Keir Starmer's response to a question on this topic that got him and his party into hot water lately. Unfortunately for Starmer, it doesn't appear that the issue is going to subside anytime soon, with some fearing that it could actually begin to hurt Labour unity and their position in the polls. So in this video, we're going to have a look at exactly what Starmer said, how Starmer responded, and whether this is likely to damage the Labour Party in the long run.
This is really interesting because at the end of the day, they're just trying to eke out as much pro. So it's not even pro-Tory. It's just anti-Labour, so you can analyze it as much as possible, get bored of Starmer because Starmer's hard to look at anyway, get rid of the Labour Party as contenders, but that's not going to happen anyway, and Tory Lick Dick Relentlessly News knows this. So what they're doing here, what's this for? Well, it's just more propaganda, and it's like right versus left propaganda, and it's always the same old thing, but neither of those sides actually represents anybody but the same interests that have been in power for ages. That's big business, big establishment, rich folks, and the educational institutions that rule the roost. Tories Lick Dick Relentlessly.
If you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. Ever since Israel-Gaza hostilities flared up again this year, Labour leader Keir Starmer has been keen to try and demonstrate his party's support for Israel. One of his first
They put these messages on the screen. It is almost like brainwashing, isn't it? They're just trying to put this question in your head, put the question in your head.
Big displays of support was at the Labour Party conference,
where
he received a standing ovation for his condemnation of Hamas and his statement that Israel has a right to defend itself.
Haven't things changed? And now the Labour Party looks like Tory light. More Tory light than ever before. They stood up, standing ovation, because they condemned Hamas and backed Israel. Again, not thinking about the Palestinian people. That's not what's on the forefront of their mind. They're not interested in that, are they?
Now, Starmer's statement in the speech demonstrated that his view on the developing situation was in lockstep with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak.
Amazing. Both leaders are basically aligned with the same things and are going to enact the same policies from the same policy institutes in roughly the same way. You see, the thing is as well is that the division of policy, you have these overarching policy institutes come up with policy, then give it to these other policy institutes that then translate it so that it sounds conservative, it sounds Labour, but it's still the same output that you get from it. Is shit input, shit output, and you get what would you get at the end? Globalism, 15-minute cities, all of the agenda that's coming in 2030, whichever one of these tools is in, whether Sunak or Starmer is in, it makes zero difference.
Has condemned Hamas as terrorists and reiterated that Israel had a right to defend itself. At this point, there was little condemnation of Starmer's position, even from the left wing of the party.
Well, that's because there's no left wing of the party. This guy's saying there's no condemnation, even from the left wing of the party. Well, they destroyed the left wing of the party, didn't they? They cut it out like it was a saw, and now it's all right all of the time. It's all right, everybody. I mean, it's all right. No, it's all right. No, I mean, it's all right. No, it's all right. No, it's all right. Starmer's here. It's all right.
However, the day after his comments at the Labour Party conference, Starmer gave an interview to Nick Ferrari at LBC.
A siege is appropriate, cutting off
water, electricity. But all right, he's going to deny this. But I mean, you've got to note two things. He was having a bad hair day.
Power, cutting off water.
Well, I think that Israel does have that right. It is an ongoing situation.
Does have that right.
Obviously, everything should be done within international law.
He says clearly does have that right, and then later goes back. But look at how bad hair day that was. So I mean, you have to give him some form of some sort of out.
Now, these are the comments that got Starmer into trouble. He appears to be saying that the Israeli government does indeed have the right to deny Palestinians
That's what he says.
living in Gaza water and electricity.
It does appear like
that Israel should act within international law. Political commentators were quick to point out the contradiction, as such an action by the Israeli government would be considered illegal.
But that is, listen, the contradiction there is only noticeable because because Keir Starmer and the Labour Party itself are contradictory to the values they're meant to uphold. The party got taken over a long time ago by people who are on a different wing of politics, a different area of politics. These guys are not good people,
Indeed, Human Rights Watch actually explained that international humanitarian law requires Israel to ensure that the basic needs of the civilian population are provided for, and
basic needs of the civilian population, in this case, making sure they have missiles that hit one Hamas leader and kill hundreds of women and children.
Agree that blocking these amounts to the illegal act of collective punishment. This was a particularly bad look for Starmer, whose background as a human rights lawyer
should probably have known that Article 51 exists of the Geneva Convention and should have probably worked out that, yes, it's illegal to do that.
Could have prevented him from making such a statement. What made matters worse for him was...
What makes matters worse for him is that he's literally in bed with an Israeli, though, isn't he? I mean, if you're married to someone who has got a significant national dog in the fight, you could say, not calling his partner a dog, but she's got a national dog in the fight, in the fact that she's connected in that way to Israel, then and when you put that in context to him denying international law and acting like Israel has the right to cut off water, power, and electricity to Gaza. That's insane. You've got to be able to see that that's just someone who's got a line they've got to follow. Your leaders are not in control.
The huge delay in responding to any of these criticisms. It took him 9 full days before he clarified in an interview with Chris Mason.
Oh, I loved that interview. Look, there's another clone Keir Starmer in the background who is giving the same line to another news firm at the same time.
What he meant.
And look how good a hair day that was compared to the other hair day. I mean, wow.
So let me be clear about what I was saying and what I...
Well, I was saying, well, I wasn't saying. I was saying that the Palestinians are not my friends and can't come round my house for a party. There is no cake or tea for any of those Palestinians, and I want them to die immediately so that Israel can take their land.
I was saying Israel had the right to self-defense, and when I said that right, it was that right to self-defense. I was not saying...
I was not saying the thing I said.
...cut off water, food, fuel, or medicines.
That's exactly what he did do, though. He did do exactly. He was like, he said that was the exact response he gave.
And yet people came to that conclusion.
On the contrary.
This looked like too little, too late from the Labour leader, whose original comments and delayed response made him appear to some as though he wasn't also a defender of the rights of Palestinians.
He's not the defender of the rights of Palestinians. No one is. No one in that establishment is. There's no one left anymore.
Those that were looking upon the Labour leader favourably may have cut him some slack and chalked this down simply to a communication error. However, as a Labour source pointed out to the New Statesman, if these communication errors are allowed to fester, they begin to seem like problems.
Problems. Let's read this. That's funny. According to insiders, the delay in clarifying that Starmer did not believe Israel had such right as part of defence has had disastrous political consequences. Issues in Westminster are usually seen as communication problems, but sometimes, if allowed to fester, they are actually problems. This was one of those times, said the Labour source. Problems. It became problem. Ooh, what's just underneath this? Because I'm from South Wales. This row deepened after Starmer visited Muslim leaders at the South Wales Islamic Centre. A statement by the centre said that the leader had gravely misrepresented the nature of the meeting on social media, which it said was to raise the plight of the Palestinians. Amazing. I mean, he's awful. Keir Starmer is awful. Keir Starmer, Jimmy Savile. Type in and do something that is not Google and you'll find some shit.
Sources claim that this is one of those situations. Starmer just couldn't seem to get on top of the story either, as only 2 days after his interview with Chris Mason, he visited Muslim leaders at the South Wales Islamic Centre. He tweeted at the meeting that he was grateful to hear from the Muslim community, and he repeated his calls for hostages to be released, more humanitarian aid, and a focus to be put on a two-state solution. The mosque responded to this by saying that, "We wish to stress Keir Starmer's social media post and images gravely misrepresented our congregants and the nature of the visit."
Wow, that's amazing to have said that. To have said that openly, that he gravely misrepresented the congregants. Ooh. And the nature of the visit. That's amazing.
Again, Starmer supporters would likely argue that this was another communications error. But to many, this was yet more proof that the Labour leader was not taking the plight of Palestinians seriously enough. And
why should he?
Frustration over
why should he? He's paid by the other side. He's in bed with Israel in like multiple ways. Why should he pay any mind to the Palestinian plight? Why would you? Why would you? Why would you even care about whether they lived or died? Why would you? You don't need to care about any of that. No, you're being paid. You're being paid in all so many ways, with a career, with his life, with the ability to change your party into something that they want it to be, and then you get given bonuses and become head of it. Well done. Well done. It's all a plan, isn't it? We've watched it unfold. We saw how they gained consent, how they cut out the actual left wing of the party. Labour is nothing. It's a husk. It's a Tory husk.
What Starmer's said, there's also been frustration over what he's not. Specifically, a number in the party have called on him to call for a ceasefire, something he's yet to do. Starmer's defended his position by arguing that this would go against Israel's right to defend itself. And
wow, okay. When a Labour leader is unable to call for a ceasefire at a time of war, we are in real significant trouble. This is a canary in the coal mine, really is, and that's maybe a bit of a socialist pun in there somewhere, but it's a canary in the coal mine, you know. If the people who are the first people who are supposed to say and defend the rights of a victimized people on either side during wartime, when everything becomes blurred, aggressive, and murderous, to not be able to call for a ceasefire is crazy.
Instead, has called for humanitarian pauses. Throughout this
humanitarian pauses, this wording is World Economic Forum. This is the type of thing they say in the World Economic Forum. We'll have humanitarian pauses instead of a ceasefire. Oh, okay, mini ceasefires where they still get to kill and they still get to fire and there's no ceasing. That was good.
As parts of the Labour Party. By all accounts, the fiercest backlash came from Labour councillors, a number of whom resigned after they heard the LBC clip. This Wednesday, 150 of the councillors jointly signed a statement to Starmer and Deputy Leader Angela Rayner, requesting that they openly call for a ceasefire.
Yeah, can we see that again? Because, again, this is one of those times where, so a load of this is the leader of the opposition, Keir Starmer, and dear Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner, we undersigned write to you as Muslim Labour Party councillors, formally calling on the Labour Party to call for immediate ceasefire in Gaza and to end the humanitarian disaster. 5,791 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli airstrikes on Gaza since 7th of October. Of those killed, 2,360 of them have been children. That's unbelievable. They're killing off the next generation. Don't you see that if this was okay, if these people who are trapped in these little areas and being bombed from above, if they were stuck in a room and gassed, then you'd understand, wouldn't you? Then you'd say something. That's what this is. I mean, we know it's all just, it's semantics. It's the same thing. It's a genocide of a people to take their land, wholly, not holy, for sure, to take the Holy Land wholly. It was reported that 704 Palestinians have been killed in the previous 24 hours alone, in addition to the 1,400 Israelis who lost their life in the shocking and terror attacks of October 7th. Listen, you don't have to be any Palestinian who lives in Gaza are going to be also stuck in a mindset and a frame of mind, and the same with Israel. And we have got to understand that to an extent that isn't their fault, but we choose the directions we go when we support a side in armed conflict. And there has to be, if you're a person of peace, you have to say cease, and if you're a person of war, you have to say more. I think that's it, isn't it? Person of peace says cease, person of war says more. That's what we're looking at. I'm going to coin that phrase. Please, can you remember that was mine?
Rayner requesting that they openly call for a ceasefire. Labour MPs have also started to get involved too, with a group of Muslim Labour MPs meeting with Rayner on Wednesday. They too called on her to commit the party to a policy of a ceasefire. They haven't only done this behind closed doors either. The Guardian estimates that as many as 45 Labour MPs have publicly called for a ceasefire.
Now, there would have been no problem under Corbyn. There would have been no problem, except for the fact that the Israeli lobby and all of its constituents, like Margaret Hodge and the like, would have all worked incessantly and relentlessly to smear him. Corbyn, that is. They apart from that, there would have been no problem. And actually, before, even probably under Labour and under Blair, and others, and Brown and Miliband, you would probably heard a ceasefire, a call for a ceasefire. It wouldn't have been. They would have known that Israel wouldn't have listened. They would have known that, and Israel wouldn't care that they're calling for a ceasefire, but they would call for one anyway. Now, Israel don't care whether or not they call for a ceasefire. But Starmer has zero backbone. If you have him run your country is over. It is over. It's a globalist paradise. This is slow cook globalism.
or have signed a Commons early day motion calling for one.
He's disgusting.
Arguably, though, the most public instance of Labour backers piling pressure on Starmer came at Prime Minister's Questions, where Labour MP Yasmin Qureshi questioned the Prime Minister on when he was going to commit to a ceasefire. Now, Qureshi didn't explicitly call Starmer out, but asking the Prime Minister to pursue a...
Oh my God, this is so terrible. After they all go round in a circle, so they don't quite do the thing they should do to actually do something. No, they all be careful, gerrymander, juggle around the words, hope for the best.
Policy that her own leader has explicitly ruled out is certainly a show of defiance. Labour has not yet made clear whether Qureshi will be punished for the question.
They're loving this though. Tories lick dick relentlessly news are loving this. They get to cover all of these insider bits. I mean, this is what they love, is to look at the Labour Party and say, look how divided it is.
This situation has very visibly undermined Starmer. Conference was a demonstration that, unlike the Tories,
no one can undermine Starmer more than Starmer himself. This creature in front of you, this almost featureless Skeletor looking. He does really look like Skeletor. I mean, just to, if anybody has noticed, yeah, he does look like Skeletor. But Skeletor, like a liberal Skeletor and his wife Skeletus, are just, they're obviously awful.
The Labour Party is united. This is an important distinction too, as the perception of unity has undoubtedly helped Labour surge in the polls against a Tory party that has,
no, it hasn't,
been tearing itself apart.
It's just Labour surging in the poll. Look, they have been since Labour's been surging in the poll. Labour's surging in the polls because the Tories are dropping in the polls and people only vote one or the other because they're idiots. Well, if you're out voting either Labour or Conservative, you're an idiot. That's it now. That's it. I'm sorry to all of you. I know you're like, oh yeah, but if I don't vote for one, the other will get in. That's both of you saying it. Both of you on either side are saying that over and over. If I don't vote for the other one gets in. And both of them are doing exactly the same things and indistinguishable from each other. And both get their policies from policy research centres who get those policies from the same people. You're just walking a line that's been given to you. This modern politics, two-party politics, is dictator land. We're in a dictatorship. We're there. We're stuck. We're on a path they drive us. It only go up because the others go down, and the others go up when the others go down. It's not about people being better and people trusting people more. It's about people trusting the others less, and that pushes up the other people because you've only got two choices. No one wants Keir Starmer in. He's the best out of two atrocious, like sluggy things that live in the marshes of Hateville.
For many, it seemed as though the party had matured and was ready for government. We're now at a point, though, where shadow minister...
The party had matured and was ready for government. These guys are some of the sickest people. I don't recognize this as being a Labour Party at all. This is Conservative Party, and the other one is the far-right Conservative Party. They're actually, no, that again, that's me doing it. That's me trained. Oh, they're this, so the other ones must be something different. No, they're not. They're exactly the same. I mean, you analyze it. They just push out the same shit. It's not the one becomes the same as the other one. They become Tories and the Tories have become Labour. It's that they both become a bland piece of nothingness, of a void, an absence of control and power, so other people can use agitation of public consciousness to continue capitulating or taking control of power and letting people capitulate, because that's what's happening, is that you scare people enough, you give people enough fear. You think about it. Think about if you are in Britain, if you are a British person, if you are like me, what has your experience been? 2016, 2017, Brexit starts, boom, boom, boom. Corbyn versus May, boom, boom, boom. Anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, boom, boom, boom. It's divisions all over the place. Everybody's divided. 2019, 2020 comes in. What happens? What happens when 2019, 2020 comes in? Everything starts to roll towards the pandemic. Everything turns into chaos around the pandemic. Next 2 years, chaos around the pandemic. Then what happens in the New Year's? Ukraine starts to happen. 2022, Ukraine starts to happen. And momentum builds up. It's disaster. Everybody's divided again. In between, you've got everything from gender bending sort of policies to very good things happening as well, and being stopped from happening. There was lots of things that have divided us, loads of things, and we've got to this stage now, and everybody's like, oh, I can see this happening all around for years and years. I had before what happened on October the 7th happened, for about 4 months before, all people were asking me was the same thing over and over again. What's the next thing that they're going to use to divide us? What's the next thing that they're going to use to divide us? What's the next thing that these people here and the opposition, the politicians, what are they going to do to divide us, to divide our opinion, to make brother fight brother, to make us a cuck of us all? Well, we can see now.
Material resignations could be just around the corner. If this were to happen, it would shatter the image of the Labour Party being united, likely bringing Labour polling down with it. Right now, Starmer is in damage limitation mode, trying to prevent any more public...
That's not Starmer. Starmer's in damage limitation mode. He's taking on another appearance, and he's painted himself up as a Muslim. Yes, Starmer's in damage limitation mode. And why? Because the damage has been done. There's no way to stop it. Everything is going downhill. And then when it comes around to election time, everything will stabilize, and it will be a close race, won't it? Not enough to get a majority. Not enough to get a majority. That's what you'll see. I can promise. Mark my words. Next election, whether the polling remains like it is now or not, it will not be enough for a majority. There will be a minority government. There will be cross-the-board talks that fall apart, and maybe there'll be another election eventually, because this is all about instability now. To get this agenda going, the futuristic, the globalist agenda, to get Agenda 2030 in, to get World Economic Forum policies enacted by these World Economic Forum young global leaders who have been taking power for years and years and years now, since 1997, and Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, Ed Miliband, William Hague, Ed Balls, David Cameron, Rishi Sunak, Liz Truss. All these young global leaders have been taking power. In the background, there's more of them. Yvette Cooper and like powerful people. Boris Johnson, all of these people have been accepted by the establishment as the people who run the PR firm that is political parties now. None of it represents you.
Shows of disloyalty. If he fails at this, though, it could well be the beginning of the decline for the Labour leader. A few weeks ago, we told you that we were making a physical newspaper. But it turns out that designing a newspaper isn't all that easy. So we headed to Skillshare to take their course on the topic. Okay. Unlike when Jack tried to learn...
Well, we're done here. Now they're doing an advert about Skillshare, which we're not very interested in at all. And we got to think about the pasties that were just given to us by Tories Lick Dick Relentlessly News. Starmer's first major U-turn. Yeah, I think they're trying to make the best out of it. They're this sort of reporting will look at the polling and will say, look at how bad the polls are for Sunak. Look at Labour's meteoric rise. Everybody loves Keir Starmer. And then Keir Starmer will get a load of publicity. It'll all get messed up. By the time of the election, we are going to get a much narrower deficit, whether Rishi Sunak's in charge or not. And what do you get at the end of it? The same thing. If you are still supporting this sort of politics, you're as mad as this guy is on TLDR News, this crazy look that he's got in his eye there. Stop falling for it. Just stop falling for it. It's not real. It's all pasty.